We're just going to give everyone about another minute to get all logged in, and then we will get started. So thank you for joining. And we're just going to give everyone about another minute to join. But thank you for joining. And I'm excited for this one. So we'll get started in just a few. And for those hopping on now, thank you so much for joining. We're just going to give everyone a few more seconds to get all logged in before we get started. And just a few more seconds for everyone to get all logged in. And I think that's a good group, so we can go ahead and get started with our session today. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I'm an Enterprise Customer Success Manager at Jotform. Welcome to the final installment of this season of our Lunch and Learn series. I promise it's not a goodbye, just to see you later. We'll be back before you know it. But for now, let's focus on the present. And boy, do I have a present for you with this session today. If you've joined us for a Lunch and Learn before, you may have heard us warn that we are not using a HIPAA compliant server for our demo. Well, for this session, that is not the case. Today, I'll be chatting about all things HIPAA compliance and what that looks like for our Jotform Enterprise users. While Jotform Enterprise's default security is extremely robust to protect data using the industry standard 256-bit SSL connection with an SHA 256 certification, we also recognize the need for additional layers of protection to be considered in compliance with various laws and regulations across the world. This is where our HIPAA compliance option comes in. If you're a current HIPAA user, considering HIPAA for your established enterprise server, thinking about making the jump from a standard Jotform account into a HIPAA compliant enterprise server, or you just want to learn more about your options, you'll definitely want to stay tuned. Before we get started, I just want to note that this session will be covering a lot. It's currently being recorded and streamed on our YouTube channel, and it will be available for your future reference in our Lunch and Learn playlist as well. Additionally, I'll save some time at the end for questions about HIPAA compliance, and we'll also provide some resources to supplement this information. And with that, let's get started. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, just celebrated its 28th birthday on August 21st. But what is HIPAA? The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services defines HIPAA as, quote, the cornerstone law that advances patient privacy, data protection, and health information security in our nation's healthcare system, unquote. Back in 1996, when the legislation was signed into law, the internet was not a sizable part of our day-to-day life. Even the World Wide Web was only just made available to the general public 3 years earlier in 1993. Fast forward to today, our world is centered around online access and automation, and that can definitely raise eyebrows when it comes to the privacy and security of our personal data. Over time, HIPAA has been modified, and various rules, such as the HIPAA privacy rule, the HIPAA breach notification rule, the HIPAA security rule, and the HIPAA enforcement rule, have been added to continue to protect the privacy and security of health information in an ever-changing web and electronic-based environment. That comes to the next question. Who should opt for a HIPAA-friendly Jotform enterprise environment? Well, this question isn't a black and white answer. With Jotform's flexibility and adaptability across a variety of organizations and use cases, that question may be better suited for you to ask yourself. What kind of data are you collecting? What compliance does your organization require in its tech stack? Who needs to have access to this data? And what does your process look like, and who's involved? In our session today, as I walk through a demo Jotform enterprise server with HIPAA enabled, I encourage you to think about these questions and how HIPAA may work for you. So without further ado, let's hop into our server and see how it works to keep you and your respondents' information secure. If you're already using Jotform Enterprise, you're probably pretty familiar with the screen we're looking at here, the star of our show, our form builder. At its core, the form builder will function the same in a non-HIPAA enterprise server as it does in a HIPAA-friendly one. I can still drag and drop elements from the left side menu onto the body of my form. However, one key difference is the ability to set fields as PHI. This designation, noted here with the PHI switch, is referring to the information that this field is collecting. For fields that are collecting protected health information, or PHI, we want to make sure that this is switched on. PHI, as defined by the HIPAA legislature itself, is, quote, any information that can identify an individual and relates to a patient's past, present, or future health. This may be actual health information, as we can see here, like conditions experienced by the patient or their family, or it could be something like date of birth or social security number. So we now know that we can mark fields as PHI on our form, but what does that mean overall? Well, denoting a field as PHI will do a few things. First, it will prevent that data from being visible in plain text anywhere outside the system. Let's take a look at an example of that now. Sending emails is an incredibly useful automation tool that can be configured in the form builder. These can be used to send a confirmation to the respondent, as well as to notify necessary parties of a new submission. When PHI fields are included in the body of an email, they're marked as hidden to protect your privacy and would require me to authenticate via my Jotform Enterprise username and password to review the patient's responses. This way, if someone were to gain access to my email inbox, the most private information of this patient would still be completely secure. Another feature of emails is the ability to send a PDF attachment of the form's responses using the PDF editor functionality. In an environment with HIPAA compliance, these PDFs are password protected when exported. This password is established directly within the form builder and must meet several strict criteria, such as a minimum of 8 characters, including 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, 1 number, and 1 special character. When exported from the system or saved directly from the email, the document retains this password and restricts access to any individuals that do not know this password. For our session today, I've prepared a recording of attempting to open the PDF for this submission from my email and being prompted with the PDF password screen. So we can see here, I'm downloading it directly from my email. I'm being prompted to enter that password that was established before viewing the file. Click OK, and then I can see all of the information. Additionally, even when it's saved in my computer and opened via my PDF software, I'm still prompted to enter that password before being able to view the entire document with the patient's information. Without knowing that password, I could not ever open that document or view it outside of the Jotform Enterprise server. Another tool inside Jotform that uses some similar functionality to adhere to HIPAA compliance is our signed documents. In a document, such as in this example, a procedure consent form, I want to obtain a signature from my patient. However, this document may have PHI on it, detailing out portions of their medical history and procedure specifics. Because of this, when sending the form to a patient, I will be asked to establish a PDF password so that when it is signed, completed, and returned to both myself and the patient, it will be password protected. With signed documents, however, the password is unique to each sent document and could be viewed by the user responsible for sending these out. As a reminder, the only people that can log into your Jotform Enterprise server are those with licensed user accounts and an established username and password. While on the subject of licensed users, A licensed username and password is by default required to view submission information and uploaded files in any server, HIPAA or not. However, an individual does have the opportunity, if they wish, to turn off these settings in a standard server. Having these settings disabled could potentially expose submission information to people with malicious intentions and put your organization's data at risk. To keep submission information airtight in a HIPAA server, these settings are not able to be unchecked. This is to maintain the security and privacy of your data by only allowing those who you have granted a license in your server to access your affiliated data. Speaking of licensed users, another way that a HIPAA-friendly Jotform enterprise server protects PHI is by only allowing licensed users to be approvers. Let's take a deeper look at an approval flow now. After a form is submitted, it may need to be reviewed, approved, and signed off on by members of your organization. In order to take action on the submission, the approver would need to get the complete picture of the submission, including the PHI. To view PHI, you must be a licensed user. So in order to be an approver, you must also be a licensed user of the Jotform Enterprise server. In this flow, the submission is made by the prospective patient and then sent directly to a nurse on staff to review. You may notice that I'm assigned to this approval. This is acceptable because I'm a licensed user of this Jotform Enterprise server and can authenticate with my username and password before being able to view any data. If I were to add another email, like maybe this other nurse on staff, I would add their email here, but because their email address is not associated with the user account in my server, I receive an error message when trying to add them as an approver. In order for this submission to flow correctly, I would need to add this additional nurse as a user in our server or remove her from the approver list entirely. So we've gone over ways Jotform Enterprise keeps PHI safe and secure in a HIPAA-friendly environment by not allowing individuals without a licensed user account to view PHI, be sent it in an email, or open PDFs containing this data. But what about sending data to other softwares in our tech stack? Listed here are a variety of different integrations that are compatible with a HIPAA-friendly server. These integrations are split into two groups. The first is denoted with the HIPAA badge in the lower right-hand corner. Integrations like Salesforce, the Google Suite, webhooks, and Zoom all have this designation. This badge signifies that this software can be fully integrated with your HIPAA-enabled Jotform Enterprise server. All data collected from Jotform, including the PHI, can be sent to these third-party softwares. Keep in mind, though, that while these tools are considered HIPAA compliant by the standards set in the legislature, you're still responsible for maintaining the security on both ends, meaning Google Sheets is considered a HIPAA compliant software. However, if that Google Sheet is shared on a public-facing website, that does negate the HIPAA compliance, as anyone could access and use that data without authorization. The second set of integrations on this list are not marked with the HIPAA badge, but are still able to be integrated into your HIPAA compliant Jotform Enterprise server. These include systems like Airtable, HubSpot, and Zapier. These systems can accept only the non-PHI data from your server. If there are any integrations that are not possible to integrate with a HIPAA compliant Jotform Enterprise server, they would not be listed here at all. The full list of integrations available can be found in our user guide, as well as our HIPAA integration compliance checker. Here, you can review a list of all potential software integrations and determine whether or not it's possible to integrate with your HIPAA-enabled Jotform Enterprise server. This tool will provide detailed information on specific integrations compliance efforts and discuss considerations to keep in mind before opting to integrate this software with your HIPAA-friendly server. Now that we've gone over the mechanics of how Jotform Enterprise works to keep PHI secure, Let's move on to discuss some additional considerations to keep in mind when working in a HIPAA-friendly environment. Up to this point, I've discussed in detail about the necessity of being a licensed user in a HIPAA-friendly Jotform enterprise server. But in your organization, who should actually be a licensed user? Well, like everything I've discussed today, that would be at your discretion. But here are some things to keep in mind. First, does this user need to build forms? If you answered yes, they should be a user. Next, does this person need to be a part of an approval flow as someone who needs to review and approve submissions? If you answered yes, they should be a user. Finally, does this person need access to submission information in a table or inbox format, any generated reports, PDF versions of form submissions, or the ability to view files uploaded by the form filler? If you answered yes to any of those, they should be a user. Now, within licensed server users, there are still additional permissions to keep in mind. The first is the type of user they should be added as. There are two different types of users in a Jotform enterprise server: admins and standard users. An admin has access to everything within the server, including the screen we're looking at now. They have access to all form submission data, even if they're not the original creator of the form. They also have access to user management and server-wide setting configurations via the admin console. This role should be used sparingly, especially in a HIPAA-enabled environment, as to limit the amount of people with unfettered access to all data, especially PHI. The second level of permissions is the standard user. A standard user will be able to create forms, access the submission data of the forms they created, and serve as an approver. However, if they are not the original creator of the form, they must be given explicit access to a particular form or submission table before being able to access it. Such permissions can be given on an account level or as a part of Jotform teams. Jotform teams, if you are unfamiliar, is an easy and streamlined way to share and collaborate on forms, approvals, tables, reports, signed documents, and apps all in one place. Within a team, all members must be licensed users. However, there are a subset of permissions you can employ to continuously ensure that only the necessary team members are given access to the PHI data. The one I want to call out in this section is the creator role. In a team, the creator role will be able to build and edit the content of forms, but not actually see any of the data associated with the form once it's been filled out by the respondents. This is just another consideration to utilize if there's possibly someone on your team who's a star form builder, but may not be privy to view PHI data in your organization. Managing individual user permissions is just one way you can ensure only the need to know people, well, need to know. But there are other server-wide configurations you can put in place to ensure the continued safety of your organization's data. In the settings of the admin console, you'll find that there are many that will apply to the entirety of your server and all of its users. The first is enabling two-factor authentication. Enabling this feature ensures that only the person associated with the account is logging in and can access the data they need. This ensures that only authorized users are the one actually accessing their accounts, and it's just one of the many ways Jotform Enterprise prioritizes the safety of your submission data. Additionally, in a HIPAA-friendly server, automatic logout is enabled by default. This will ensure that if a user were to get up from their workstation after a given amount of time, the system will ask them to re-authenticate. An optional feature you may also choose to utilize is a single sign-on integration. This will require that licensed users log in with their organization's username and password when accessing the system. Using SSO in a HIPAA-friendly server ensures that only current employees are able to access the system. One final optional feature that you may choose to enable is the ability to restrict access to the back end of the system, in turn restricting access of licensed users to only access the system when they are within a certain IP address. This further secures your data to be accessed exclusively within your organization's physical location and prevents users from logging in from home or on the go where the data may not be as secure. So I've taken a lot of time in our session today mentioning how secure your data will be under HIPAA compliance. But I also wanted to share some specifics regarding our most up-to-date security information. Our security team recently completed our SOC 2 Type 2 compliance audit for 2024, and we're expecting our latest report to be issued in the coming weeks. As a part of maintaining SOC 2 compliance for our HIPAA customers, we are rigorously assessed each year against all 5 trust service principles. Completing this audit is an incredibly important milestone in the calendar year for our security and compliance team, and is made possible by a culmination of efforts from multiple team members across the business who work hard to keep our customer data secure. The robust security controls we have in place are a point of pride here at Jotform, but we never rest on our laurels. This audit is a great opportunity to look at where fine improvements can be made to ensure complete security and compliance across our product. Our team works tirelessly to examine the outcomes from the auditing process and to consider lessons to be learned. This helps us fine-tune our security measures for the benefit of our customers and beyond. Whew, I know that was a lot of information. Security and protection of information is of the utmost importance here at Jotform, and one way we really shine in that aspect is within our HIPAA-enabled enterprise servers. Today, I discuss some of the main features of a HIPAA-compliant environment and how each of them come together to ensure complete safety of your respondents' and organization's information. From there, I also took time to discuss additional considerations you may want to keep in mind when working in a HIPAA-enabled server or evaluating if HIPAA compliance is right for you and your organization. Finally, we discussed our most up-to-date results in regards to our SOC 2 compliance and our adherence to all 5 of the SOC 2 trust service principles. If you're currently working in a HIPAA-enabled server, my hope is that you now have a full picture of all of the ways we're committed to keeping your data safe and secure. If you're considering HIPAA compliance for your Jotform enterprise environment, I hope I was able to shed some light on different aspects of HIPAA compliance and why they're in place. Ultimately, whether or not you opt to include HIPAA compliance alongside your Jotform enterprise server will be up to your discretion. I recommend always checking with your internal compliance team before making a decision, and we're always here to answer any questions you have. Speaking of questions, if you have any questions specific to HIPAA compliance, please feel free to type them into the chat or Q&A if you have not already. And let's take a look here. One question I see is, if only licensed users can see our data, how do the Jotform employees have access to the data when working through like a support question or otherwise? So in a Jotform enterprise server, you are the owner of the data. Jotform employees, particularly our dedicated enterprise support team, don't have access to your data without your granted permission. In the event that we do need access to your data, we would work together with your team to receive temporary access to the PDF editor, table, or inbox. Once that work is completed, you can easily revoke our access to maintain the privacy of your data. And then another question I see is HIPAA only for clients in the medical or healthcare space and that they're interested in more protection, but they're not a medical organization? So HIPAA is not actually exclusive to the medical healthcare space. Despite the legislature that our compliance is modeled after, anyone could choose to be a HIPAA compliant environment. Some examples that choose to use HIPAA but are not exclusively healthcare are things like schools, law firms, financial institutions, and many, many more. If you're collecting any kind of especially sensitive information in your forms, you may want to consider a HIPAA compliant option. And then the next question, I have a lot of people that need to be a part of an approval flow. Will they all need their own accounts, or can I just create a generic account that they all use? So actually, per Jotform's terms of use, a user account is for one person and account sharing is strictly prohibited. In a HIPAA environment, this is even more crucial, as account sharing could unintentionally expose data to outside a specific person's scope and decrease the security of that information. When accounts are shared, also, you run the risk of getting locked out of the account, which could delay workflow. And then the last question I see is, how will my respondents, so people filling out the form, know that their data is secure when entering it? This is a great question. And we want nothing more than your form fillers to feel safe and comfortable sharing their information electronically with your organization. But we absolutely understand the hesitation they may have. You'll have the ability to add a HIPAA logo to your forms so they can feel assured that their data will be protected under this important legislation. But personally, I've also worked with clients in the past who will use the paragraph element in our form builder to link our security site, so that their respondents can actually take a look at that and feel assured that their data is being protected at the highest level. It looks like those are all of the questions on my end. Marketing, are there any questions from YouTube?
Nothing from the YouTube side.
Awesome. Then we will just wrap up. And I just want to say thank you again for being with me here today. Up on the screen, I've listed some helpful resources you can reference to learn even more about the ins and outs of HIPAA compliance and our other security policies. I encourage you to review the information on these pages while working in the system so you can ensure that you're adhering to HIPAA compliance utilizing the tools that we provide. Well, now it's time to say goodbye, just for a bit though. As I mentioned earlier, this is the final installment of this season of our Lunch and Learns. Speaking on behalf of the entire Lunch and Learn team, we want to thank you for joining us this season. We'll be back before you know it with a new season of Lunch and Learn sessions that will continue to build off of one another and advance your knowledge of the Jotform enterprise system. In the meantime, you can rewatch all of the previously aired Lunch and Learns on our YouTube channel. You'll also be able to find additional webinars, walkthroughs, and quick video guides both there and on our website. To stay up to date on our upcoming Lunch and Learns, be sure you're registered at jotform.com/enterprise/lunch and learn sessions. If you have any questions that we didn't get to today, please reach out to our enterprise sales team or to our awesome customer support team if you're already